Have you lost your job? Have you lost a loved one? Are you exhausted caring for your parents, for your kids? Well, you can find immediate relief when you read Sheila Mac's new #1 bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It contains the Boots formula to move from rock bottom back into action in any situation, especially right now. If life has knocked you down, pick yourself up with Bootstraps and Bra Straps. Get your copy at www.SheilaMac.com today.
Tahibo Tea Club's original Pure Pau de Arco Super Tea helps you build the red corpuscles in the blood, which can carry oxygen to our organs and cells. Our organs and cells need oxygen to regenerate themselves. The immune system needs oxygen to develop, and cancer dies in oxygen. So the tea is great for healthy people, and it can truly be miraculous for someone fighting a potentially life-threatening disease due to an infection, diabetes, or cancer. A 1-pound package of tea is $34.95 plus shipping. To order, please visit lovemysupertea.com. That's love, L-O-V-E, my, M-Y, super, SUPERTEA.com. So the complete website is lovemysupertea.com, or call 818-288-4128, Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5, California time. That's lovemysupertea.com at 818-288-4128.
You need a guide to show you how we get through a situation like this, to give you resources and to help you get out of the emotional pea soup fog of dealing with a crisis and the resulting fallout. I've been there, and I'm here to help you.
To grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is now available.
Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
And welcome to the Sheila Mac Show. Today we have special guest MARILYN DEVONISH all the way from London. And I'm going to read her intro because she has so much that she does. She's just an incredible lady. She is the neuroscience success coach, a keynote speaker, offline and online workshop facilitator, flexible working implementation consultant, a freelance writer. I have some of your books, MARILYN. And certified multidisciplinary therapist, which includes certified trainer of NLP hypnosis and timeline therapy, which is incredible. I love that. Certified photo reading, which I've taken your course, and now I read way more books. You also do tarot card readings, Huna practice, and archetypal profiling consultant. Wow, I'm not sure what that is. You're going to have to fill me in on that. And she's also a corporate trainer, executive coach, and management consultant. Oh my goodness. When do you sleep?
Well, there's about 3 hours in the day where I get a bit of sleep in.
Yes. Well, welcome to the show. And today you're going to share some really interesting things about how to overcome the seemingly impossible. I'm going to take my readers off. So tell me more about that, MARILYN.
And I thought we would start, as you said, you wanted to talk about the photo reading. I thought that might be a good place to start. Okay. And also, as we're kind of, for those of you who are watching this in real time, yesterday was also National and kind of International World Suicide Prevention Day. And those two things kind of dovetail. I know it doesn't sound like it at the moment, but for me, one of the things when I was in my early 20s, I was diagnosed with what was thought to be early onset Alzheimer's. and my doctor had said there was nothing else that he could do for me. And I tried for years to, you know, wake up my brain. I was taking all sorts of vitamins, vitamin E, starseed oil, just ginkgo biloba, vitamin B, brewer's yeast. I was doing headstands because I'd heard that if you suspend yourself upside down, the blood will go to the brain, and all sorts of things. I was doing crosswords because I bought some books on Alzheimer's and dementia, etc. Nothing had worked, and I just kind of thought, right, well, that's it now. That's the way it's going to be. And if I actually want to get through life, so I got very adept at, you know, writing. Everything was written down. I had lists, and I had lists about my lists, and it was just like, it just seems hopeless. And then just one day got a leaflet through the post, read it, and it was talking about reading at the speed of light. It was talking about drinking in information as though you're drinking it in through a fire hose. It talked about taking in information faster than you ever dreamed possible. And then it started to get into some of the numbers, like reading at 25,000 words per minute and getting through a whole book from start to finish in 5 minutes. I was like, okay, they've got to be crazy or they're joking. I don't know which it is, but I was so intrigued. I thought, I've tried everything else. I've done all the conventional things. Nothing has worked. I was kidding myself. What was I thinking? And I just left them on the shelf. But about 2 years later, I happened to be on that NLP training. And the person who ran the class said they read 20 to 30 books a month. And I'm like, how does anybody with a job read that many books in 1 month? And that's when somebody then said, well, how do you do that? And he said, I photo read. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've got those tapes, because they were tapes back then, sat at home on the shelf. I wonder what would happen if I went home without judgment, without trying to because at that point I had my business degree. I had my postgraduate marketing diploma with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So in my mind, I already knew how to learn. I already knew how to study, and I already knew how to traditionally retain information. And I couldn't fathom that doing the things that they talked about in photo reading, which were very left field for somebody who's very logical like myself, couldn't even fathom it worked. When this guy said he was reading 25 to 30 books a month, and then he said, I photo read, that was a point where I said, I'm going to go home. I'm going to listen to every single tape without second guessing it, without poo-pooing it, without criticizing it, and without thinking I know best and putting my spin on it. And I'm just going to do what I'm told. And within about the space of a week or two, everything had changed and transformed. And really the rest, as they say, is history from that point on.
That's incredible. So that really did change your life. And I remember when you shared about what you did when I visited you in London, and I thought, okay, is this even possible? I had so many books from events, all these things that I wanted to study and learn and start applying in my life. And I just didn't have time to do it. And then I started using your program. And the next thing you know, I'm reading 20 books a month, at least, just in my spare time while I was traveling full time. So it was great.
I love that. And one of the things I always say, often helps, because, reading is one of the more obvious applications for photo reading. And I say, if nothing else, it just helps people fall in love with books and know that they have the time to get through whatever it is they want to read. But when you really then start taking it in different places, that thing of opening up your creativity, your intuition, your critical thinking skills, your decision-making skills, and just being in that state of flow in life in general is so powerful. So I always say that photo reading goes way beyond reading, and it really then starts helping people tap into what I'd call their genius potential and being more limitless in the way that they live their lives. And that is where you then start doing things that you didn't even think were possible. I don't know if some of your readers, your viewers and listeners might have watched the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper. And I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, he was studying to be a neurosurgeon. He's a medical doctor studying to be a neurosurgeon. He attended the workshop, and on the first night he said to me, have you seen the movie Limitless? At that point I hadn't watched it, and I said, no, why do you ask? And he said, you are doing everything in the movie. He said, the only difference is we don't have to take a silver pill, and you're not time shifting. The workshop is 2.5 days. On the Sunday, because I normally run it like a Friday night and then Saturday and Sunday, on the Sunday he came back and he said, I take that back. He said, you are time shifting, because I cannot believe how much information we've covered, how much people have changed just in this 2.5 days. And so I went out and watched the movie, and he was absolutely right. Everything that is in the movie is what we were doing in that room. But to have somebody who's studying to be a neurosurgeon say that, it was like, wow, that's amazing.
Little things make such a big difference. Now, we're going to be back after this break. So for those on the radio show, please stay tuned, and we can keep talking actually here. So that is beautiful. To change people's lives like that, what do you think is a tip for people who are struggling with fitting time in to get reading on the table this year?
One of my favorite, I wonder if I've got it handy. I'm just looking. Oh yeah, give me 1 second. This is live, people. This is live.
Yes, we're live.
So this is one of my favorite tips. And it's also one of the, when I'm teaching people about how to overcome procrastination, I also use this as a prop. One of the things that I say, my preference, if you gave me an hour to prepare for something, to get ready for something, my preference would be not to just roll my sleeves up and try and power through and do an hour. I would do little blocks of time. So I would do 5 or 10 minutes, then have a little bit of a break, just for a minute or two, maybe stop, drink some water, go to the bathroom, get up, have a stretch. Then I'd maybe do another 15 or 20 minutes, then have a little bit of a break straight, and then maybe do another 10, 15, 20 minutes. And one of the ways to make it really fun is to get an egg timer. And now you set yourself a little bit of a challenge. You say, I am going to focus until that sand hits the bottom. Then you take your egg timer, you turn it upside down, you put it on your desk, and you go. Now, if you're a photo reader, the first thing you do is you get yourself into that accelerated learning state, which you can do in as little as 30 seconds. You do your preview, and then you get into what you're going to be doing. But it kind of gets fun when you're working against the clock and you want to see how much you can do, how much you can focus on, what you can get through before the sand hits the last grain of sand hits the bottom. So that's one of the things I would say, chunk the time, because one of the reasons for that, I'd say the maximum amount of time that you want to sit and read for would be around 40 to 45 minutes. After that, your brain starts to get a little bit tired and fatigued. So you could keep pushing on, but your mind is sort of starting to do this. Then you hit that nosedive, and now you've got to work really hard to get yourself back up the curves. If you have little breaks, rather than doing that and then having to work to get yourself back up to speed, you do this. And it's a smoother curve. And the reason I'm a fan of breaks is that you will give your brain a chance to just assimilate and take on board what you've just been doing and what you've just been learning, and also pay attention to what you say to yourself. Because some people go, oh, I'm such a slow reader, I've got such a terrible memory, I never remember anything. And your brain and your mind is a bit like a genie, and it's like your wish is my command. So if you keep saying that, your brain and your mind will do exactly what you're asking it to do. So I always say to people, pay attention to what you're actually saying to yourself as well, because there's power there, and you can use it either against yourself or use it to your advantage.
Just like everything. And now we're back to the show. So welcome. If you're just tuning into the Sheila Mac Show, we're sharing real solutions to help you rebuild, reinvent, and reboot your life this year. And we have special guest MARILYN DEVONISH, and she is our neuro success coach, and she is helping us to figure out how to overcome the seemingly impossible. And this year, we've had a lot of things that are seemingly impossible. So MARILYN is here with me today, and we are talking about photo reading and how to apply time management to everything we do, not so that time is being managed, but so that we can enjoy the waves in life and be able to have fun in every magic moment. And I know when I visited MARILYN live in London, we had so much fun in every moment. So that's just the way she lives her life. It is incredible. All right. So let me ask you, was there a point? So we went into the story about how MARILYN was struggling with reading, and then she became a photo reading expert and reads so many books. And I even took her course and now read tons of material, which I love, and I'm able to apply things. So I want to ask you, MARILYN, was there a point when you had to make a shift in who you were being? That's the first B in my Boots formula. Who were you being before, and who you needed to be in order to learn that new material and take on this new role as a leader in a leader reader, let's just say?
That's a great question. And it brings me back to where I was talking about the National Suicide Prevention Day, because all of this came to a head almost 20 years ago to the day. If you'd seen me 20 years ago, I still would have been terrified of public speaking. I still would have been suffering with the effects of what was thought to be the early onset Alzheimer's, and I was suicidal. And so in September 2000, I decided that I was going to take my own life because everything seemed hopeless. And the whole thing with my mind and my brain, where I could barely remember my own name, it's like I was locked inside of a body and locked inside of a mind that didn't belong to me. It just so happened that I had seemingly accidentally signed up for a personal development training course. And that's when I took the course, and this guy was saying that he reads 20 to 30 books a month. And I realized that a lot of what they were talking about was about your mindset, about the way that you think, about the way that you feel, about the impact of your emotions on not just your mental health and well-being, but also your physical body. And that was a revelation to me, having come from an academic background. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so for me, and they started talking about this thing called limiting beliefs. I didn't really know what those were. So if you'd asked me 20 years ago, September 2000, I would have just said I'm very quiet and very shy. And I would say I am an introvert. I'm off the scale introvert. However, the language of limiting belief, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not capable enough, wouldn't have entered my head because I didn't understand that way of thinking. So they then started talking in these terms, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm sort of looking around going, I think they're talking about me, because I've always felt like that. I always felt as though I was on the outside looking in, and everybody else was having a great time. And I'm sat on the sidelines waiting almost to be picked and waiting for my turn, but didn't have the confidence to go for my turn. And so I had to then become someone who believed in themselves, who had confidence. And I was talking to a client about it a few hours ago. And I said that the way I can put into words that defining moment, there's a piece by Marianne Williamson, Our Deepest Fear. And it's, our deepest fear is not that we are, about being powerful beyond measure. And it's not our light, it's our darkness that frightens us. Mm-hmm. And there's a piece in that I went from, well, who am I to speak up and say anything, and to say what I'm thinking, to say what's on my mind, to who am I not to?
Yes.
And I couldn't answer that question. I'm like, why wouldn't I speak up? Who am I not to? And I could not answer the question. So I'm like, in that case, I'm going to have to go for it.
Mm-hmm. That's funny, because one of the things that in my life, when I've had people say, well, you're not good enough, or you did, and then you try so hard and then you're too good at this. And there's this whole competition, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not competing with anyone. And I realized one day somebody said, you're not good enough. And I said, oh, that's so right. I am not good enough because I'm better than that. And we all are better than that mindset of not enough. That's just the limiting belief that you didn't even know existed. And once you get rid of that, your whole life can change. And thinking is another part. The T in my Boots formula is thinking. And when we change our thinking, it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. Yes, sometimes we have to grieve and go through ups and downs in life, or things that we can't control. Like right now we have California fires, and our pandemic is continuing, and all this fun stuff, universal pause, whatever you want to call it. But it's, who are you being in all you're doing, and how are you setting your mindset? So that is incredible, MARILYN, that you are able to make that shift. And, this year we've had a lot of people that are depressed, they've gone to these thoughts, maybe even suicidal thoughts, or have a loved one that has suffered through depression. And I'll tell you, just having you on this show, somebody here out there that's listening to this broadcast is going to hear this and make that shift and know that they're not alone. And just little mindset shifts and knowing that we're in community together. Look, here you are in London, I'm in the United States, and we're connecting. So there's ways to connect. And look, now, how many years later, you have an incredible life and you're public speaking all the time and writing books and sharing your program. So things can change. Stay with it. All right. So let me ask you, is there another pointer that you'd like to give to people out there listening to this now that are trying to reboot, maybe reinvent their life or their business? I know you talk a lot about online business. You've been doing online business for many years now. Could you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I'm often saying now that the new normal that the world is speaking of is my old normal. As you said in that wonderful intro, and thank you very much for that, because I know there's a lot to go through. But I have been a flexible working implementation consultant since 2003. What that means is going into organizations and corporations and helping them design and implement remote working and flexible working strategy and policy, and then teaching staff how to do that both practically and in terms of the technology and in terms of the mindset. And also, by the same token, I've been doing online coaching, online training, and online therapy since 2005. And I actually have someone in the United States to thank for that. I don't know who she is. I do not remember her name. It was such a long time ago. And she phoned me up and she said, I'd like to do a one-day breakthrough session. You know, I read your article in Psychology's magazine. And I said, oh, where are you based? She said, I'm in Birmingham. I said, fantastic. I said, there's a straight train that goes from Birmingham to Watford, which is where I live, or London Euston, which is just down the road. She says, no, Birmingham, Alabama. And I went, oh. And I was quiet for a moment, because up until that point, for the first 5 years, I'd only seen people in person, face to face. So I said to her, look, here's the deal. I says, book a breakthrough session. We're going to do it online. But back in those days, the technology wasn't what we've got now. So we did it by phone. I said, we're going to do the breakthrough session, but we're going to do it in smaller chunks, because I think 8 hours in one sitting on the phone is too long. And I said, if I am not happy with the breakthrough session, I will give you a full refund. She was like, no problem. Sheila, to this day, it's one of the best breakthrough sessions I've ever done. The timeline therapy process was out of this world phenomenal. And from that moment, she gave me that shift to go, because a lot of the stuff I do is energetic, like the HUNA stuff. I've got clients in Australia and Dubai and all the rest of it. When I'm doing HUNA, even if they've got no idea what I'm doing, if I'm focusing on them, they feel it. So I've always known about the energetics of this work, but that client out in Birmingham, Alabama, and if she happens to be watching this, please get in touch. I really have to thank you, and I'll give you a coaching session for free. But she was a pivot point, and I was like, wow, I could do this online. And I've been doing that for the last 15 years now. So now that we've got, you know, everything going online, people working remotely, I'm like, that's the place I was 15 years ago. And 17 years ago with going into corporations. And the biggest conversation with companies was to convince them that it was possible for people to work remotely and still be efficient and still be effective. And suddenly now with the pandemic, it's just turned everything on its head. So I've been a fan of this, and I've been a fan of online groups since I started running them in 2013, because we've had people who have become lifelong friends as a result of the connections they made in a Facebook group. So when people say, oh, you can't have real connection online, I'm like, actually, I beg to differ. Connection is where you choose to find it. And like many things in life, it's what you make of it. And I have somebody for the last 5 years, her name's a lovely lady called Sunny Olmo. She's on a plane from Boston in the United States, flying to London for the weekend on the strength of the friendship she made in my Facebook groups. She's been doing that for the last 5 years. That's a long haul trip. Wow. To fly out, get up from your desk, fly to London, go out for 3 or 4 days, fly back. And there have been some times she's come off the plane and dragged that suitcase and sat at her desk and done a full day's work. That's the powerful those connections have been online. So our new normal is weird. It's come to us in a very weird and disruptive way.
Yes.
And I know there are elements of it which I believe will remain once all of this settles down.
That is so true. Okay, we are going for a break on the radio show, so we'll be back in a few moments. And for those listening live, stay here. So now we're going to have a little talk about, yes, I traveled full time, and I remember that you and I actually met online. And I think you were in a book, you had done a chapter in one of Dr. Wayne Dyer's books. I think. Yes. And so that's how I connected with you at first. And the next thing you know, I found out we were in so many other groups together. And when I went to London, I had you as a guest, and we went to UPW, I think it was, or UPW. Yes.
It was.
And then I got a tour, and I got to learn how to use the transportation in London, which I was like, there is no time clock, and it shows up whenever it wants. And we just had a blast. I got to meet everyone in the Yes group, and we had so much fun. So that's the kind of connection. Look, that was, I think that may have been 2013 or...
Gosh, I have to. Do you know what? I now rely on Facebook memories to kind of, because time, we are in a time warp. There are times of like, there's no way that was 5 years ago or 7 years ago or 10 years ago. And that's one of the things I love about Facebook memories. It will present us with these things and tell us the exact date and time. But yeah, it was about 7 years ago, because I was either going to be or was on the Yes Group leadership team at that point. So yes, it was. But time really, really flies. And I smiled today when I looked at the photo reading book, because one of your favorite people is on the back of the photo reading book. His name is Anthony Robbins. And I remember when I first did photo, his endorsement has all, hold on, let's do it that way. There we go. His endorsement, that one there, has been on the back of the photo reading book for the last 20 odd years. But when I looked at it today, I smiled, because I know he's one of your favorite people. I'm like, oh, that's a full circle moment right there. And he's giving his endorsement, saying no matter what you need to read, you know, you can get it done in a third of the time. So
exactly. Wow. Even Tony uses this. Isn't that incredible? Well, he'd have to, because I couldn't keep up. And then when I took your course, it made all the difference. So that really, really helped. I was traveling full time for about 7 years, and I have met people all over the globe. And, you know, I don't miss the traveling full time, because I still have the connections from people I met in 2000, 2011, 2010, 13, and we're still connected, and it's just even better now. So it all depends on how we approach this universal pause. You know, is it an obstacle or is it a gift? Yes. Yeah, so yes. Okay, we are back now. For those of you tuning in to KCAA, welcome back. And we are talking with MARILYN DEVONISH, all the way from London, live in the USA. And she is our neuro success transformation coach. And she's talking about how to overcome the seemingly impossible. So we went over how MARILYN at one point was kind of depressed and even got suicidal thoughts. And then she found photo reading and was able to unlock new opportunities and connect online with everyone. Years ago, before we had working from home, she was already working from home. So welcome back. And now I have a quick question. We're going to talk a little bit about, now in my Boots formula, I talk about being. So we went into who you were being before that switch happened, where you decided to take your life back and get yourself empowered with reading and photo reading and all the beautiful things that you share and do right now. Then there is the orientation, where you had to say, okay, you know, did you have that moment where you had to sit down and say, oh, this is where I'm at right now. I read at this speed. I do this and that. I'm in this mindset, and I need to be really, you had to be really honest about where you were and then where you wanted to go. You know, you had talked about how you were shy, you called it, and you didn't even like public speaking. And I see you everywhere online and sharing and doing lots of keynote speeches and helping corporations and clients everywhere. So there was a shift that came about. Do you remember when that shift happened, or if you sat down and thought about it?
The shift happened. I remember I was on the training, the personal development training, which I'd signed up for seemingly by accident. I'm a more believer in synchronicity. And I was studying to be a chartered accountant when I took that course. I just took the course because I thought it was about communication skills and it might give me the confidence to actually speak to my accountancy clients. And I remember somebody saying to me on the training, "Oh my goodness, I can't imagine you being an accountant." And I remember I just smiled at her, but I got really angry inside. And I thought, how dare she? I've been studying for all these years and I gave up my job in the investment bank to do this course, blah, blah, blah. But actually what she said kind of landed. And I thought, do you know what? Now when I started getting into it, I really enjoyed the coaching. I enjoyed the therapy. I enjoyed seeing my mind and brain starting to wake up and come together. And so the decision then was, do I carry on with my chartered accountancy studies? Because I had 3 more papers to go before I could then become chartered with an organization called the ACCA. Or did I give it all up and become a coach and a hypnotherapist instead? Now, when I decided to give it all up, it felt like a no-brainer. To people outside of me, they're like, "Oh my goodness, what's happened? She's lost her mind. She's been inducted into some kind of cult. What is this NLP and photo reading?" But I just felt so certain. I was like, you know what? If I can change this much in the space of a week, if I can go from contemplating suicide and feeling like my life was over, and that I am worthless, and that what I think and what I say has no meaning, to now feeling empowered and starting to get excited about life. Imagine working with people who actually want to be there, because I didn't want to be there. I was kind of dragged in kicking and screaming. The only reason I was there is because I phoned them up and said, "Hey, I've made a mistake. This isn't the course I meant to book on." And they refused to give me a refund.
All right.
I was there. I went to get my money back because they said, "Come to the training," a bit like Tony Robbins. It's a similar sort of thing. "Come to the training. If you don't get massive value, we'll give you a refund at the end." So that's the only reason I was there, to get my money back, because it was several £1,000s. But by the end of that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I could actually start to imagine myself doing it and actually enjoying it and helping other people who actually do want to change and do want to grow and do want to be more empowered. And I was like, now that would be a way to spend my life. Whereas a few months before, I didn't even know it was possible to be in that space, to do that, to make a living in that way. It wouldn't have occurred to me. I just knew about traditional jobs and the tradition, because I've been working since I was 15 years old. So, I was a grafter. And that was the way it was going to be. So yeah, a decision had to be made. Do I want to continue with the accountancy studies and become a chartered accountant, or do I want to become a hypnotherapist? And 2 of those are so far apart. There's just no comparison. It's, but I remember making the choice, and I just woke up and said, I'm going to give up the accountancy studies. I'm going to be a coach and therapist instead. And I probably do want to become a trainer of NLP and a trainer of hypnosis, so that I can work with other people and facilitate the same change and transformation that I had just experienced.
So that was really the S is stepping up in my boots formula. And that's when you had to make the choice to leave some of the things that everybody else thought was safe, to step out of your comfort zone and follow your heart and go with your bliss, and look at the beautiful things that you've done and all the people that you've helped now over these years because you made that choice. And it seems to me that this year, with our universal pause, we don't even have to make that choice. That choice was made for us. It's like, hey, you know what? Guess what? Now you can change your job and do what you love. So, we might have to put on a mask in some places, depending on the rules, but we're really taking off the masks that were on us for all these years of what you're supposed to do. And, you know, so many times we do what our parents tell us to do, or society says you need to do this, that, and the other to provide for your family. And what's really happening is you haven't chosen happiness. And what is it worth if you're making so much money, working so many hours a day, you're not helping other people, and you really don't even like what you're doing? Then you're a doing, and instead you're switched over to being and loving everything that you do, because it's how you're showing up in everything and who you're being and all that you're doing. So that makes a huge difference in the effect. That is so beautiful. Yes. Okay, we have to go for another break if you're on the radio show, so stay tuned and we'll be right back. All right, so we get to keep talking here on the live again.
Oh, wow. I love it.
I'm learning, because the radio, when you do the radio shows, you have to do all these stops. So we're learning a lot about that. And it's kind of like that. Earlier you talked about taking little breaks. And this is just, maybe somebody really needs to hear that today, probably me. Because, you know, where's that little hourglass where we have to stop and breathe?
Yeah, the sand has now hit the bottom. So, you know.
That's it. It's really, somebody needs to hear that message really today, because, you know, that's something I can get into the flow. And I know you can as well, because we were up all night working on projects when I was visiting and traveling and going to sites at 1 a.m. when it was snowing in London. And I remember, it's when you're in the flow and you're contributing and giving back, there's like no room for fear and depression to set in, because you're just doing. And sometimes we do forget to stop, because what we're doing is fun. It's not work. And that makes such a difference. I mean, it makes all the difference when you're able to contribute. I think that one of the things I found when people get into depression or they've had a tough situation, if they're able to step out and go help someone else in contribution, or if you've lost your job this year with what's going on this planet, even if there's nobody hiring, if you can volunteer somewhere and share your talents, first of all, you're not going to be sitting on the sofa. And secondly, people will see who you really are and how you're showing up and who you're being, and you will get a job. They will hire you. Somebody will be like, that's the person I want for my company or my corporation or whatever it is. And of course, ask for help when you need it. That's also, you know, sometimes we need to be a little humble and honest, because when we're giving, then we're open to receive. So just step out and go do something fun like that. How many times have you given back to someone and you get new opportunities because you were in a giving space, right, Marilyn? I'm sure you have a million stories about that.
And for me, it's so weird. I mean, if you could have heard, it almost sounds like you're listening to my client sessions today. Because the last session I did, that he said, you know, because I was saying, okay, what are some of the things that are important to you and how you feel when you make this change? And one of the first things he said, in terms of, in terms of what he'd like to choose, it's not giving anything personal away, because it's something I talk about all the time. He said gratitude. And I said, oh my goodness. I said, I've been running an online magic and gratitude group since 2013. And I said, it's one of the things that has been really powerful and magical in my life. And I've been doing that for over 20 years now. And I was saying to my client today that I watched a film when I was growing up that starred an actress called Hayley Mills. And her character used to play the glad game. And because she went into a really miserable town and everybody was down and depressed and all the rest of it. And there's this little girl playing the glad game. And she then, by the end of the film, I won't tell you how it ends, but by the end of the movie, pretty much she's got the most miserable of people in the town playing the glad game, where basically you've got to think about something you're glad about today. So that seeded the idea in me. And when I was kind of trying to pull myself out of what I was feeling, I just thought, let me just find one thing to be grateful for and happy about today. And so that's basically how it started personally for me. And then there was a movie called The Secret, and they had they then put the whole thing about gratitude front and center. And I was like, actually, that would be a really great program to devise a series of daily exercises for people that they could do every single day. It takes about 5 minutes, and it's going to change the trajectory of their day. And what I didn't know at the time, it would change the trajectory of their lives. I had somebody who signed up. She was getting out of bed, dragging herself out of bed, feeling depressed. By the 7th day, by her word, she was getting out of bed with a spring in her step. By the 14th day, she had started to come up with ideas about what she wanted to do with her life, because she had no sense of direction or purpose. By the 28th day, she had started to make the connections and meeting people who could help her in that purpose. And this was back in 2013. I received an email from her 3 days ago. She is still living the dream and the idea that she came up with back in February 2013. It was. And it was just taking 5 minutes a day. So it is powerful when you are and some of those gratitude practices focus on other people, not just about what are you grateful for. There's one where you sprinkle other people with the magic dust and the gratitude. And I've done several articles and interviews where the strapline is basically from suicidal to Samaritan, because that thing you say about contribution and giving back. I contemplated suicide in September 2000. The following year, I became a Samaritan's volunteer, and that's the suicide hotline, that's what some people used to call it, where people are phoning up if they feel depressed, if they feel suicidal. And I was one of the people answering the phones. And we also had a visitor center, so people could come into the center and sit down and have a cup of tea and biscuits, very English, and have a talk. So I went from calling them myself in September 2000 to 2001. I became a volunteer, because it just blew me away that there were people on this planet who were holding that kind of space for another human being. And I thought, well, I can now I've sorted my head out, I can do that for someone else too. So you're right about the giving back and the contribution. It's just a whole different ball game.
It really makes a difference. And for those of you tuning in, welcome back to KCAA. And this is Sheila Mac with the Sheila Mac Show. We are sharing real solutions for real situations to help you reboot, reinvent your life this year. So we have with us MARILYN Devonish all the way from London, and she is our neuro success coach. And she is talking about how to overcome the seemingly impossible. So during the break, we were kind of still chatting, and we were talking about how MARILYN has now gone from, at one point, being somebody calling into a suicide hotline or Samaritan's hotline. And now a year later, that was back in the 2000s, early 2000s, she actually now is somebody on the line supporting other people to get back on track and reboot their lives. So that is so beautiful, MARILYN. It makes a difference when we're in contribution. It's kind of, I don't think it's even possible to be in contribution and fear at the same time.
Yeah. And there are so many simple ways. One of my most favorite stories about giving back to another human being, it's going to sound really basic. So it's so weird. I was talking to someone about this on Tuesday, so 2 days ago, in terms of synchronicity, how this all fits together. And I'm walking through town. I've got masses of shopping, and I'm literally, it's so heavy, I feel like my shoulders have been ripped out of their sockets. And I just glanced at a woman who was sitting on a bench. She's wearing a denim jacket and jeans and white pumps. We call them trainers here. And I looked at her, and I just thought to myself, oh, she looks lovely. I walked past, and I'd gone a few steps. My brain said, go back and tell her that. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I turn around with these shopping bags, walk all the way back, and I said, excuse me, I'm so sorry to bother you. I just wanted to tell you I love your outfit, and I think you look really lovely. She looked at me and went, and then she started welling up, and she said, you know what, love? She said, I just walked through, because we got a shopping centre. She said, I just walked through the centre, and she said, I caught sight of myself in the glass. I won't say the word she used, but she said, I looked at myself and I thought I look crap today. That's what she just said to herself. And there's me rocking up and going, I think you look lovely. So we have a little chat. I then pick my bags up, say goodbye, walk away. I get about 5 minutes away. My brain then says, go back and ask her if you can take a photograph of her that you can share online, because you think she looks so lovely. So now I'm like to myself, are you kidding me? She's going to take come crazy. So I turned around with these massively heavy shopping bags. I went, hi, sorry, it's me again. I said, I think you look that amazing. Can I have a photograph of you, please? And I explained what I'm going to do. I'm going to share it on my Facebook page. And she said, okay, but I don't want my face in it. And so she turned away. And I took the photo and I showed it to her. She then broke into the biggest smile you've ever seen. And I said, now that is the money shot. I says, can I have another photo with that smile? And she went, go on then. So I take this photo of her smiling, and I'm walking away. Now, the mantra for our Magic and Gratitude group is thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm walking away, and because it was like in a concrete space and they were doing some building works, as I'm walking away, all I could hear for the entire 10 minutes I was walking is thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I was just like, oh my goodness, of all the people that could have walked along in that moment and said those words to her,
right?
You can't, I call it divine timing, and think you cannot make that up. And so I am one of those crazy people. If I stop a man, the first thing I say is, this is not a chat up line. I just want to say, I love your suit, you're beautifully turned out, or I love your shoes. And to women, sometimes I might go up to a woman and say, you look absolutely gorgeous. So I always preface that by saying, I am straight, and you look absolutely gorgeous. I love your hair or your dress or your earrings or your eyes or whatever it is. And then by then I'm gone, because I don't need to get into a big old conversation about it. And it is not a chat up line, but genuinely, if I see something that moves me, I'm going to tell you about it. And I have lost count of the number of times somebody will then open up and say, oh my goodness, I've had such a terrible day today. I can't tell you what that means to me. And I'm like, that's just crazy. That's crazy.
Yes.
So I am a fan of giving back in that way. Because sometimes when you think of giving and contribution, of course, your time is a big one. But then the next thing people think about is money. And it's like, no, it doesn't even have to be that. You can give someone 20 seconds of your time and it can change the entire landscape of their day or even their life, because many people remember the person who said something supportive when it felt like the world was against them. And those people make a lasting impression on your mind, and it didn't cost anything, and it probably took 30 seconds.
And I think that's the biggest thing about, why I did some of the things that I did, wrote a book, and I have a lot of free resources for people to get back on track. I was listening. I didn't know. We're having California fires now in the USA, and I lost my home and a whole bunch of other things, everything I owned in 2017, and had to start over. And at that moment, that's when I wrote my book to help people. And for no other reason, I thought, if I could give somebody something where they don't feel alone and get them through a tough spot, that's going to make all the difference. Now, I had different things show up in my life, and it was timing. It really was. I mean, in December, this last December, I had to put everything on hold when my youngest son passed away. And it was still timing. It was a universal pause. He had a heart condition since 5th grade, and I believe he was with us extra time, to be honest. He lived to be 22, and he was such a gift. And so when you're in the space of listening to, oh, I need to write a book, I need to go say something to somebody, I need to share a message, or just, we're on here today and somebody's listening that might be having those thoughts, but not anymore. You know what I mean? Just little things like that, listening, and don't question. I think we're trained to question what comes out of our mouth. Sometimes it's like, but if it's coming from our heart, it doesn't even matter, because then it's something guided, and it's supposed to be out there in the world to help another person. And, when you're giving, you receive, and it's not because you're expecting to receive. The fact that lady on the bench had a better day and you got her to smile and laugh, that probably made your day as well. I mean, and all those beautiful thank yous walking down through that corridor there, you received the thank yous back. You heard that, you listened. You could have said, well, I don't want to say that. That might come off kind of odd, but you know what? You stopped and you said, what? It doesn't matter, because this is what's in my heart. So go with what's in your heart this year, especially. That's beautiful. All right. Well, thank you again for being on the show all the way from London. And thanks for everyone tuning in. I hope to see you again soon.
It's the holidays, and I'm dealing with an overwhelming sense of grief that is secondary to the loss of my family members that occurred during the holiday season almost 2 years ago. I'm attempting to resume my family traditions with a smile on my face, but my heart is troubled and sad. I'm grateful for the numerous friends and my support network that I am blessed with. However, I'm hoping that you can offer some insight and suggestions to help me keep my healing heart in perpetual motion this time of year. Thank you. Sincerely, Blue Christmas. Dear Blue Christmas, I'm so sorry for your loss. Losing more than one family member during the holidays is very difficult. I can't imagine. And one of the things that has helped me get through holiday seasons, because I've lost quite a few family members myself, was to change my holiday celebrations, to celebrate my loved ones that have crossed over in a different way, gave me a new tradition. And that may help you as well. I'm not sure how you celebrate your holidays or how you did in the past, but save a place for them at the table, maybe have a ceremony for them and send them love, and then stop and pause for a moment before you plan your holidays this season and think about what, if they were living with you today now, what would they want for you as your relative? What would they want to see for your happiest holiday this year? For myself, with my children, I think what I would want for my children is for them to continue to celebrate and live their best life every day, including on the holidays. And I would appreciate their memories and thoughts of me. So I think that may help. And just forming new traditions. Because whenever there is a life shift, whatever it is, divorce, or kids grow up and they have their own family units, they can't travel to see us, whatever it is, our holidays are going to shift over time. And grieving a loss of more than one loved one is the hardest, for sure. Yet these are things that are going to happen. And so to have a new form of holiday will make a big difference for you. I hope this helps. As always, I wish you life, love, laughter, and light. Thank you for listening to Dear Sheila. Thank you for tuning in to the Sheila Mac Show Reality at its finest, where we share real situations with real solutions to help you rebuild, reinvent, and reboot your life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mac. I'm giving you some homework. Grab a copy of my bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, to learn the formula to go from rock bottom and back into action in any situation. If you have a burning question for the show, send it into www.dearsheila.com. Tune in again Mondays at 1 p.m. Pacific Time and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, right here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Tehebo Tea Club's original Pure Pau d'Arco Super Tea helps you build the red corpuscles in the blood, which can carry oxygen to our organs and cells. Our organs and cells need oxygen to regenerate themselves. The immune system needs oxygen to develop, and cancer dies in oxygen. So the tea is great for healthy people, and it can truly be miraculous for someone fighting a potentially life-threatening disease due to an infection, diabetes, or cancer. A 1-pound package of tea is $34.95 plus shipping. To order, please visit lovemysupertea.com. That's love, L-O-V-E, my, M-Y, super, SUPERTEA.com. So the complete website is lovemysupertea.com, or call 818-288-4128, Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5, California time. That's lovemysupertea.com at 818-288-4128.
You need a guide to show you how we get through a situation like this, to give you resources and to help you get out of the emotional pea soup fog of dealing with a crisis and the resulting fallout. I've been there. and I'm here to help you.
To grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is now available.
Have you lost your job? Have you lost a loved one? Are you exhausted caring for your parents, for your kids? Well, you can find immediate relief when you read Sheila Mac's new #1 bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It contains the Boots formula to move from rock bottom back into action in any situation, especially right now. If life has knocked you down, pick yourself up with Bootstraps and Bra Straps. Get your copy at www.SheilaMac.com today.